I won't start sure if it was a dream or not, but I remember that he was in some room lying against the wall. I felt that behind me. I'm so scared that could not move suddenly for no reason. I felt myself completely, calmly to the left of me. I, out of the corner of my eye, saw a large creature that looked like giant tardigrade. It sat behind some kind of control panel. I turned and saw another creature. I don't remember how it looked like, but I remember I asked, "Can I ask them a few questions?" To which I received the answer that sounded in my head, "No." That's all I remember. My brother-in-law says he was kidnapped. No special details I don't know, except that at that moment he was in the forest. He went there at night. He never did this. I didn't do it, at least without warning. Someone found it the next morning. In a complete daze. He was shocked. Barely he could speak. He never said that happened. He wanted to tell nothing. Said just now they were doing it to him. Experiments. After this incident, on his right leg appeared something like a birthmark. There was no spot before. That's me for sure. I know he wasn't there now. He has clear purple spot almost all over the foot. What the hell, am I really abducted by aliens? And this is not a joke. Once, while working, I was driving alone on the M62 UK track. On the clock, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. The next moment that I remember looking at the clock and seeing 5 hours too. Don't understand where I thought that I went crazy or something like that. When I returned home, I went to bed in my sleep, dreamed of what happened that night, and I immediately remembered everything. I was taken to the alien ship, was taken to some room and put it on the floor. They took it from me, sperm, but I did not experience an orgasm. Then some kind of reddish, rust-like liquid, it seems to me. They pumped it into me in order to follow me every few weeks or so. I wake up in the morning at 5 hours and I know that I was there, but not. I can remember nothing. Sometimes I get the feeling that I have just taken or about to be taken away. There is nothing cheerful, and no one believes me. I'm sure they take our genetic material and inhabit other planets. Hybrid creatures. They took me in the middle of the night. I fed the cattle in the light moon, and then a huge ray fell on me. Sveta. The next thing I remember is that driving along the road and talking to someone who, as I later understood, was it my father or with the father of the man in whose body I am now. He joked that time is passing slowly and that he had seen a series of secret materials that were said that when aliens abduct humans, time turns back so they can drop off a person at the same time as he was taken away. But I think that something was mixed up, because I am not in the body from which I was taken. I remember all my previous life, and in this, I am 18 years younger than me from this. A few years after, I went to see is the farm on which I once lived. However, I needed a lot of time to get there without arousing suspicion. It turned out that she disappeared as if there was no farm. Maybe it was just a dream. I don't have a story for you. I don't have anything I remember, but recently I had an MRI and a doctor asked me when I had the operation on my back, and I have never had he is a Harvard graduate, and the neurosurgeon said that I definitely had some kind of operation given the presence of scar tissue along the spine. Jokingly told him that aliens were shoving. I got my probe there when they kidnapped me. Hearing this, his face changed and he seriously pondered. He did not perceive my words as a joke. After that, I looked at the picture a little, seemed more attentive, and then said, "I'm ready to swear to my medical diploma that's on your back. There is scar tissue after surgery in general, nothing about, but I still have. This scar on the clock was about 3.50. I'm a night owl, so I usually go to bed around this time. The rain and the wind became creepy for me, and I had a strange feeling that is about to happen something bad. I looked out of the window but noticed nothing terrible except for the fact that the trees swayed very much. I was uprooted from them. Turning around, saw her doors. 2 aliens. They were thin, bent backs. They did not joints dividing their bodies into individual and limbs of the head, moved mechanically like robots. The door to the room was closed, so assumed that they had passed through it, or teleport directly to mine room. They spoke to me on some strange language that looks like some kind of half-human, half-alien. In the next moment I realized that I was tied up in some kind of huge opaque ethylene field package. It had holes through which I could breathe almost immediately. I sank into a deep and calm trance, and when I woke up I realized that I was in some kind of unfamiliar to me. I could see through holes in the ethylene field package. I had the feeling that I was in sky and everything around soars. Then I heard steps. As I understood, the main one came up to me to study me. He unzipped, but when he saw my face and gave up the sonorous foo and immediately buttoned me back into the next moment I was back in. It was 2009 for me then. Was 13 years old. On Friday evening I was late. I sat at the computer playing some flash game. I typed something in the address line when suddenly he heard a strange silence. It's hard to explain, but all the sounds seemed to be disappeared. Only the sound of my fingers remained. Tapping on the keys, I was interrupted by for a second and wondered if it had happened to. What do I remember? I was afraid that I had stroke or something like that. Then I ended up. There is a huge space there, absolutely black. I could hardly distinguish the edges of the room, but they seemed to be metal to me. It was cold. A couple of minutes before me came what was happening. I was hovering in a huge room, looking up to where it should be the ceiling. Around there were no light sources, but somehow the small area I was hovering in was consecrated. I remember how I examined everything around, being in a state of a kind of fugue. A little later, the sound returned, but only. Now it was a strange hum that slowly became louder and then quieter. Something like the sound of an engine, but more soft and harmonious in one way or another. I felt uncomfortable with him when I surfaced. From this state I made a huge inhale and I began to adrenaline. I tried to move but could only move. I was still wearing clothes, but I just floated in the air, winding head and try to understand what actually. I have fully regained consciousness. I can't tell you how strong. There was fear after that. I heard from behind someone's breath and heavy, powerful steps on the metal surface. I turned. I tried to see my head. What is there? But the light did not reach there so much. My heart was beating violently that I thought that about to die. Gradually I began to see outlines, approaching figures. My brain, with difficulty, tried to understand that it was not a man. The figure was huge in measure. Her approach to the light, I began to discern the features of the head. It was a fucking horse. Brown horse with black mane. Slowly walked into the light, passing by me. I remember how I felt the heat from her torso when she was so close. She came to the door at the edge of the room, are located closer to my feet in that. The light was no longer so bright. The horse stood up and I heard a sound similar to opening the zipper. Suddenly a horse fell to the floor, or rather her shell made of it. A small figure of the humanoid. He appeared, turned around, looked at me with huge black eyes and then just went out for. I didn't have time to lift the door as suddenly I felt next to me again someone's presence. I turned my head and saw another humanoid covering my face with some kind of ball. Came after that. I woke up, but I wasn't in my bed. A couple of kilometers from my house. My head hurt terribly and I was wearing clothes. I was torn and stained. Slowly stood up and looked around when I realized where I was. I'm just back home. Drank a headache pill and went to bed. In that moment I just wanted this night ended. I had no idea what happened to me, but after a while I definitely realized that what I experienced was reality. It was not a dream or a dream paralysis, not sleepwalking and so on. It was very real. For a long time to no one did not tell about this incident. Now every time I'm on someone's farm or I see a horse somewhere else, I remember that night in the comments. A lot of people who believe that they know better what kind of experience you are survived, obviously, that they simply did not, are willing to accept the fact that we are likely to. Not the only civilization in this world. In recent years I have read hundreds of such evidence, but there are thousands of all these details that you mentioned: the sudden silence lighting, visible light source essence, hiding behind an avatar. All of them are found in a huge percentage. Eyewitness accounts we have. There are a lot of cases when unusual. The event was experienced together by several people and in even greater numbers. Witnesses of these incredible things became specially trained. People who have no reason not to believe in NASA Congress for the last few years and Inspector General of Intelligence Services began an investigation into this phenomenon in various directions. Congress successfully votes in favor of creation and financing of ARAL, Agency for Comprehensive Anomaly Investigation, and developed a law protecting whistleblowers working over secret programs within the framework of attempts are being made. Re-engineering of technologies obtained from another civilization already exists. Repeated cases when the former employees of the special services report some X-Files, in particular David Grush, who testified under oath to the Inspector General of Intelligence. In the service, he will soon testify under Congressional Veteran Delegation oath. Intelligence claims that the state hides non-human technology. Origin from Congress, I don't know. Does this phenomenon exist on the topic of aliens to ignore? In addition, given the fact that lately more and more credible witnesses, such unusual statements have kidnapped me. During my cousin's wedding, everything was like in a fog. There were two of them, shine too large. With lanterns, they barely spoke English, and gradually asked me questions about how much I drank. I guess once. The Earth-water planet was interesting to them. What we drink, contrary to the common opinion about banal probes, is one of the. I always tried to force the aliens. I put on my pants, not take them off, but I'm in. At that moment I could not find them, but another alien who seemed to be. The main thing was that I was always talking about the fact that I disturbing other wedding guests and trying to steal my bottle of champagne from them. Spacecraft, many bright lights in. They are mostly red and blue in color. Carriers sent me to their ship, placed in a cell with other people, whom they also kidnapped that day. The next moment I remember is morning. I'm standing on the sidewalk in the city center, near the police station in the head of the. I was foggy, but physically I was intact and unharmed from everything I have experienced. My head hurt terribly, and then when I was driving on the bus I vomited. Thank you very much for viewing. In the comments under the video, people who were abducted by aliens, tell us your story and don't forget to watch our other issues. Hugged for now.